Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Gaia the Fierce Knight Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. Now this is a deck profile I've been working on for quite some time now. I've just tried gathering up all the Gaia the Fierce Knight support for a deck that didn't revolve around Blackluster Soldier and more focused on the fusions you can do with Gaia the Fierce Knight and his, I would say, loyal steed Curse of Dragon, going back and forth between the horse and dragon that he obviously uses. But it's a really fun deck. The whole purpose of the deck is to fusion summon into your Gaia the Fierce Knight monsters and then make use of those fusions, and also able to special summon out, Gaia the Fierce Knight and Curse of Dragon with some of the other cards we play in the deck, with also being able to easily search them out for your fusion plays. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the monsters, I run 3 Gaia the Fierce Knight. I actually couldn't find a third one, but I honestly was considering running Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight in the deck profile, but I couldn't find enough room for it. So if you're missing a few copies of Gaia the Fierce Knight, Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight, I would say it works just as well. Not so much with some of the search aspects that we'll get to later on in the video, but still, being able to be used for a lot of the different cards that we do run in the deck. So it's basically your main go-to knight for your fusion plays. Very important for a good amount of them, just very searchable with some of the other cards we run in the deck as well. And like I said, made for your main fusion to go to in the deck, which is your Gaia, the Dragon Champion. So definitely need this card in the deck for those plays. As a little added backup to the Fierce Knight lineup, I run 3 of the newer Gaia the Fierce Knight, which is Lord Gaia the Fierce Knight. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And once per turn, if a monster with attack higher than this card is special summoned to your opponent's field, except during the damage step, you can make this card gain 700 attack until the end of this turn. So with this one, you basically have just power options, but also a very easy way to special summon a stronger warrior monster out onto the field to make use of. Sometimes if you can't rely on your fusion plays as fast as you want, at least getting Lord Gaia the Fierce Knight out onto the field is a next good backup to rely on. And I was talking about the loyal steed before, or obviously the dragon champion himself, taming dragons. I run 3 Curse of Dragon. I run this card mostly also because it is searchable with Summoner's Art, being able to grab this card to your hand very, very easily. And then also for some of the other fusions we run, just needing a dragon type monster for Sky Galloping Gaia, the dragon champion. Curse of Dragon just falls in line. Like I said, this is a fun deck, and you want to make use of the 2 monsters needed for the summons, and the one that always appears on all the different arts is Curse of Dragon. So it's also just being 2,000 attack points with some of the plays we run, also including Defusion, splitting up your dragon, getting this card and Gaia the Fierce Knight onto the field, giving you a 2,000 attack point monster and a 2,300 attack point monster to swing into your opponent is all the better as well. But just like Lord Gaia the Fierce Knight, we also have Curse of Dragons evolved form, I would call it, and that is Curse of Dragonfire, a level 5 monster with the same attack and defense as Curse of Dragon, but with an effect, which is all the better. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target 1 field spell on the field, destroy it, and once per turn, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as fusion materials, including this card. So the field spell is an added bonus, just going off of the Burning Land effect that Curse of Dragon had using this card. So very, very helpful there, just to take care of maybe pesky field spells your opponent may have. And also, if you don't have the polymerization, the fusion effect definitely comes in mind as well. The best way I would say to get this card out is obviously to special summon Lord Gaia to the field and then tribute it for Curse of Dragonfire, since you just need 1 tribute to get this card out, and then you can make use of all of its effects there. Essentially, I would go for the field spell destruction. Most of the time you should have polymerization in your hand to make use of, but just an added bonus when you can use that other effect. And then lastly, for the monsters, I ran a low monster count just for how searchable we have some cards in the deck, but just for added backup to Gaia the Fierce Knight, I run 3 Envoy of Chaos. During either player's battle phase, you can discard this card to target 1 Blackluster Soldier or Gaia the Fierce Knight monster you control. It gains 1,500 attack until the end of this turn, and if it does, every monster that your opponents that it battles it this turn has its attack become that monster's original attack during damage calc only. And then you can also banish light and dark monster from your graveyard, except this card to add it to your hand. So you just have recycle power, which can come into handy sometimes. We don't really have too many lights, excluding, from the extra deck, of course, for this deck. For the recycle, I usually just use this card for the power option for Gaia the Fierce Knight when going up against some of your opponent's other monsters if you can't get your numbers high enough with that card. And that is it for the monsters. Now moving on to the spells, I run 3 Spiral Spear Strike. This is a continuous spell card. It was the main go-to spell for Gaia the Fierce Knight. If Gaia the Fierce Knight, Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight, or Gaia the Dragon Champion you control attacks a defense monster, you inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. And if Gaia the Dragon Champion inflicts battle damage with this effect, you draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card. So the discard can definitely help for some graveyard setup to special summon back some of your stronger monsters to the field if need be. If you already have the fusion play out on the field, which you should with the fact that it has to be Gaia the Dragon Champion. But the piercing effect with just how high, Gaia has attack points, being able to do piercing can definitely help if your opponent builds up some defense as well against your stronger monsters. I like to run the 3 just so you have the shot of getting this card out on the field quickly to use with some of your other fusion plays. You really can't, search it with the deck, but you do want those options to at least have it on the field to use otherwise. And I also run the 3 Summoner Art. This one, with the fact that you can search Curse of Dragon or Gaia the Fierce Knight definitely does come in handy just to grab those monsters to your hand quickly and then use them for your fusion play. So a definite 3 of you'll always have the searches, I feel, with this card having, 6 search targets with this one in the deck. Like I said, I do run, obviously I have the 1 Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight in here as a spot filler for Gaia the Fierce Knight, but other than that, it still doesn't really hurt your search at all with this card. And I also run the 3 Polymerization. It's your go-to fusion spell for the deck just to make sure you do have the right materials for, summoning out your Gaia the Fierce Knight. And also just a little more help to search out Polymerization. I run 3 Fusion Recycling Plants. The field spell, once per turn, you can discard 1 card to add 1 Polymerization from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And once per turn, during the end phase, you can target 1 monster in your graveyard that was used as fusion material for a fusion summon this turn. Add it to your hand. So just more options to recycle the cards to reuse again next turn if your opponent does destroy your fusion monster. But also, you need that search easier for Polymerization to your hand as well for the deck. And also just for easier search for the Fusion Recycling Plants. I just like that everything runs together pretty smoothly with this deck with the searches, let alone for, your monsters. We also have the spell searches for Polymerization. Just having that search with Terraforming is another added bonus for sure. And I also like the fun play of 2 Defusion. This one, just because you can swing with your fusion monster, then quickly defuse into your Gaia the Fierce Knight and your Curse of Dragons. Always a fun play to do for sure. Splitting up your knight off of his dragon steed and then attacking with both of those monsters as well. And then for a couple 1-ofs, just to add with the deck, I run 1 Monster Reborn just for easy special summons from the graveyard if you don't have the Defusion play, but you still want a big monster out on the field. 1 Reasoning. Now, this deck, you can go one of 2 ways. Your opponent can guess level 5, or they can guess level 7, and then it's a 50-50 shot right then and there which one they send with that. So it's a fun gamble to take for sure, so that's why I like to run Reasoning. Also, 1 Reinforcements of the Army. This is for Envoy of Chaos. It's the only search target you have with reinforcements, but just having this sort of hand trap in your hand to use is a definite added bonus. And also 1 Regeki. This is so you can clear out the field and then just hit big with your monsters. It's a lot of game-winning plays for sure when you have your setup, and then you open up Regeki in your hand as well. And then that is it for spells. Moving on to the traps, I also run the 3 Call of the Haunted. Now this one definitely does help for just more special summoning along with Monster Reborn, especially during the battle phase. If I can easily just, special summon a monster back onto the field. Let's say one of my fusions was destroyed. If I can just special summon back into the main monster zone, it's just an additional monster I can use on the field since we're kind of limited with the extra monster zone, of course. And lastly, I also run 2 Fusion Reserves just for more search, since obviously the names are listed on Gaia the Dragon Champion, so you can search out either of those targets with this card as well using Fusion Reserve, and then also potentially recycling Polymerization from your graveyard back to your hand as well. And that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, I would run at least 2 copies of Gaia the Dragon Champion if I had them. I could only find one. I know I had a secret version around here somewhere, but like I said, you could just take out some of the more generic extra deck cards we run to fill in the spots for more of the fusions. It's just a generic fusion monster, but it's the main core aspect of the deck, being the fun card to get out, Gaia the Dragon Champion, one of the first fusion monsters that Yugi ever made in the original series. And the evolved form, just like all the other cards in the deck, 1 Sky Galloping Gaia the Dragon Champion. This card's name becomes Gaia the Dragon Champion while it is on the field, and if this card is special summoned, you can add 1 Spiral Spear Strike from your deck or graveyard to your hand, and when this card declares an attack on an opponent's monster, you can change the battle position of that monster. So along with Spiral Spear Strike, having the piercing effect and the battle changing effect as well is a very strong play at that. Like I said, there was no main deck searching for Spiral Spear Strike, but just having Sky Galloping Gaia as an option to search out the card definitely does help, as I would definitely bump this card's number up as well and take out just some of the generic links or exceeds we run in the extra deck as well to replace for another copy of this card. And also, I have First of the Dragons in here. You just need 2 normal monsters to make it. It must be fusion summoned. It cannot be special summoned by other ways. You can only control 1 First of the Dragons, and this card cannot be destroyed by battle except by battle with a normal monster, and is unaffected by other monster effects. So just a true powerhouse with the amount of normal monsters we run in the deck. Definitely do like it as another fusion option that your opponent might not see coming sometimes, since they'll be expecting just, your Gaia the Dragon Champion plays for sure in the deck. And then just for some more generic plays, the 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, Decode Talker, Land Fornicus, Underclock Taker, Gaia Saber, the Lightning Shadow. You can't run a Gaia deck without, obviously, all the different forms. Sadly, the only one I don't think I do have is the 1 fusion one that uses the Synchro one, which we just didn't have enough room, I would say, to make a Synchro part of the deck, unless, you add a level 2 tuner to work with your Envoy of Chaos, but then that's just a whole other formula that I might incorporate into a future deck profile. Also, 1 Mrs. Radiant, 1 Triple Burst Dragon, 1 Security Dragon, and also for the exceeds, can't go without Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger. You can obviously overlay this over some of the smaller exceeds we run in the deck, being Zenmao if you wish, or you can also just overlay it if you can get 2 Gaia monsters on the field as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, this was a fun deck that I was very excited to make, implementing 2 of Yugi's key ace monsters for the video. And until next time, I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.